What do CEOs need to know about sales these days? A lot. Outdated sales strategies and tactics plague most companies today. Listen to what innovative CEOs and experts have to say about how to change all that with Sales Talk for CEOs. Welcome to Sales Talk for CEOs. Today I have an expert that we're going to talk to about how important it is to brand yourself online wherever your customers are hanging out, right? So my guest, Scott Gillum, founded his company, Carbon Design, based on his intense curiosity about things that were broken in marketing and his drive to fix them. So I'm really excited to talk to him today. Welcome to the show, Scott.
We haven't solved it, by the way, and that's a huge task. So it gave me something to work on for a long period of time and trying to solve these challenges. But it's been exciting for the last 6 years, and I'm really excited to talk to you today about branding and social media and what do we do to get executives bought in on it.
And fixing these marketing problems, you will never be bored. There is so much, so much to fix, right? We need all around sales and marketing, we need to be getting better results. Yes. And so lucky for everyone out there, there are people like you and I working on how to get better results every day.
Yeah. Some of those problems continue to repeat themselves though, even though we get solved for a period of time.
It is funny. You know, our friend Todd Capone, who's always talking about, the history of sales, right? And if you follow him on LinkedIn, you guys will see, the things he's talking about. And history certainly does repeat itself in many crazy ways. Like we start talking about things like they're brand new, customer focus, like that's brand new, customer success, like it's brand new. And even I can tell you back from when my dad and Bob Miller started Miller Hyman, the problems they were solving then, we are still solving now. And that was back in the 70s, right? So we have a long way to go in both sales and marketing in terms of really meeting the customer where they are and making it easy for customers to buy from us. So let me pause there for a moment before we jump into our topic and just tell the audience a little bit about Carbon Design, why you founded that company 6 years ago, and what it is that you guys are really doing.
Yeah, okay. So I founded Carbon Design in reverse of how you would found a company. I founded it based on people, the people I wanted to work with. And so I started with collecting as many talented people as I could that were working on their own, freelance. And that really came about by my experience in management consulting and in a very, very large agency, where I just didn't believe professional services firms treated people really all that well. And that was our product. Like, people are your products when you're in professional services. And so I founded a company to allow people to work whenever they wanted, how they wanted, as long as they could deliver and they could do it on the timeline. And so we really gave people an opportunity, in particular working moms. That was part of my pitch to investors. There's 5 million stay-at-home moms that are looking for meaningful work. It was very much like cloud computing. There's unused capacity. Why don't we tap into that group out there? So we founded it to allow people to work differently, and they needed a different way to work. And so we did that. Everybody works on our projects, do it because they want to, not because they have to. And they center, and this is the other theory, was if you get your life right, the work will be really good. If your life's not right, the work is going to suffer. So we allow people to get their lives right. They produce great work. It produces happy clients. So that was the back end. The front end was, how do we start to solve some of these really challenging B2B marketing problems that are sitting out there and we're up against? And so we did two things. One is we leveraged, and I worked with CEB and Brent and Matt Dixon and the group over there for a long period of time. I was their agency of record for digital. We worked with them to develop challenger marketing. And when we built challenger marketing, one of the key things was, how do we open up mindsets and position companies in a way that organization or their audiences will receive a message from them. So we took that research and the experience around challenger marketing and built that into a platform for doing positioning, value proposition creation, messaging. And it's really unique the way that it works to try to fix that. And a funny story about CEB, when I got called into CEB, they had gone 400 rounds trying to get their value proposition right. Can't even say it because I'm so shocked. And when they called me and told me that, and I said, you got to be kidding me. Like, how many times have you done this? And they're like, no, we're not kidding. It's 400 rounds. So we wrestled that.
Amazing.
Yeah, we wrestled to the ground using their own research. So it's like, this is what you say you're supposed to do. The second part is our AI process around personality-based marketing. And that is to really become better at aligning preferred content to individuals based on who they are. So it's not just a title or role, it's who they are as a person. And we extend that all the way over to sales. So we extend it into sales to say, how do you sell to buying groups given the personality makeups within buying groups? How do you use people to influence people? What information do you need to give to them to influence the buying group? So that's the core of the business. And so we're still working towards trying to fix, our sales and marketing process, but we've made some pretty good progress over the last 6 years.
Yeah, I think that every company out there, I mean, I rarely see companies that just have it figured out, right?
No,
It's
right.
just the sales isn't figured out, the marketing isn't figured out, and we're struggling because of it, and we're burning out people on all ends of it, right? People who are just tired. Like I hear a lot of marketers telling me, "Oh, God, I just hate social media. I don't want to go near it. I don't want to do it. I don't And I'm like, wow, you're a marketer. And I hear salespeople saying, oh my gosh, my company makes it so hard for me to sell. I don't have any leads. And, you and I were talking about this earlier before we started recording. I made this big rant about CEOs who think that they can just hire sellers who somehow automatically have leads. Like they just pull leads out of their sleeves, and it's just like, no, that is not the way it works. And I see CEOs who want to hire more sellers to get more sales. And I'm like, but the sellers you have are not at capacity. Yeah. They don't have enough leads. You've got them doing research and, dialing for dollars still in this day and age, right? And doing a lot of activity that isn't having conversations with people who can buy. Yeah. So it's like, we need to understand the split between sales and marketing, right? Like marketing needs to do the branding and the awareness and build up that, desire for people to want to talk to sellers, right? Yeah. And all the research and everything that comes with that, so that sellers can have conversations every day with people who can buy. Right. But we've got like this sellers doing marketing poorly, yes. Right? They're cold outreach on LinkedIn. They're cold outreach on emails. They're cold outreach on the phone. And we have marketing trying to do some things, but it's not working to warm up so that people know who we are when we're calling them as sellers, right? So it's really just kind of a mess. But in my rant, I was just saying, listen, leads don't just automatically appear when you hire a salesperson. There is a process, to develop leads inbound and for outbound both. And it's sales and marketing combined that have to do it. And there's many ways to do it besides cold outreach. And in fact, if anybody looks at that post, you'll see I put numerous ways for people to, develop leads, including CEOs and senior leaders opening their networks and making introductions, having advisory boards that can do that, doing events, your own events online or in person, going to trade shows, doing contact marketing like Stu Heineck talks about. Like there's just so many ways. And yet the only way I see is cold outreach. It's just so distressing. But today I really want to talk with you about, one of the ways to generate really good leads, people who are interested, they want to talk to you, is by using social media. But so many CEOs either disregard it or just don't take it seriously, Scott.
Yeah. There's the third reason. Marketers don't want them on. And that's very true. They're concerned about what they can do to the brand message if they go loose. So every organization is going to be different.
Rogue CEOs scare the marketers. They might actually say something they're not supposed to online.
Right,
Oh my
right.
goodness.
And then we got to get risk management involved and everything else. So, but there are, like, you'll run into three types of organizations as they approach this. One is that they don't want senior management on social media because they're not good at it. They don't know how to do it and they don't want to, which leads to the second organization or type of organization I run into. And we just did some work for an organization like that. They actually wanted senior management team involved. And when we did the interviews with the senior management team, what they said is they want training, right? They want to know how to do it right. And then they also wanted to know what is their role. So am I a content producer? Am I a content sharer? Am I supporting other people? And so having that defined inside the organization, if you decide to go that path, and I'll tell you a reason coming up on why you should, is train people so that they get it right, so that your CMO is not all freaked out that you're going to be showing up on social media. Train them, understand what their roles are, communicate it. So inside this organization we work with, the CIO was going to be a content producer, definitely thought leader. We wanted that person front and center, producing content, well known in the industry as well. And it's just, think about it. If you're known and you're doing events, why not go online and still have that same kind of presence and that brand that you have offline? And then the last organizations are the ones who are starting to embrace it. And they're starting to embrace it because they can see the value. And I mentioned before, we got started, we worked for $1 billion global law firm, and anybody in professional services would see the same benefit. If you're considered a subject matter expert, or your organization is selling intellectual property, so if you're a management consultant, or if you're an accounting firm or your law firm, right, where you have experts inside, there is and the research that we did, and we did it on 600 partners. So it was a big study. There is a direct correlation between revenue, billings, and their online presence and activities.
Okay, pause.
Yes.
Pause right there. That is a very important thing that you said. So I don't care if you're professional services, I don't care what you're selling. There is a correlation between your online presence and revenue.
Yes.
So if that doesn't convince you, we've got more, don't worry. But that is really important.
Yeah. And for us, it was an industry where we could prove that. We suspected that might be true, but we could show that with revenues and billables by those partners. And so we looked at only equity partners. So it was the top 600. And then we looked at their billings, and we looked at their activities, and we looked at their networks. What's really interesting, and this is why senior management is really important again, your networks build organically versus others that are a low level will build their networks in a different way. The organic building of networks where people want to be connected to you is a better connection and connectivity and a distribution for you for content because of the way those networks are formed. And so it really does amplify, your connection to another CEO is more important than a salesperson's connection to a director or manager level. And there's also, there's also a corresponding uplift of what that really is. Whether it's 10x, I don't know, but it's significant.
Yeah, well, I mean, people want to be connected to the CEO, the founder, the thought leader of a company. And especially, I think, when it's a really large company buying from a smaller company where there's a lot of risk, and risk mitigation needs to, really be thought about, right? If they see your CEO online delivering great content, and they see that your CEO understands the industry, it gives them confidence to buy from you, a much smaller company, right? And so I think that should not be overlooked either. Yeah, I think the problem is a lot of CEOs feel like they can't measure it, right? They can't, we spend all this time on social media. What do we get back for it? We don't know how to measure it. I hear you, but you're saying we did a study, and
it does.
their presence on social media directly impacted their revenue.
And here's what it does for marketing. Having your CEO or CIO or CFO, depending what it is, support your marketing content gives it more credibility, right? So if you're coming out and you put out some kind of, let's say you put a webinar teaser on LinkedIn, right? And your CEO says, hey, I'm looking forward to seeing you at this webinar. That's going to get somebody's attention, right? So if they know that this person's going to be there, is going to be presenting that day, and you're participating and engaging, and you don't have to respond to all the comments. If people can do that, but supporting content online gives it credibility. And it also then goes to your network.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about some more of the research that you did, and then let's get into the nitty gritty and tell CEOs what they really need to know and what they need to do,
Okay.
right? In order to really capitalize on this amazing space where your customers are there. They're just waiting, right, for some great content from you. So let's talk about the other research that you did. A lot of people are wondering, should we be on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook? TikTok, for goodness sakes, for business, I don't know. Instagram, like, where should we be? And of course, I always say, well, ask your customers where they are and go where they are. But it's interesting the research that you did about each platform. So share with us about that.
So we researched 40 companies that were doing it right. So best of club companies. So we had to look at a lot of companies who weren't doing it right until we found the 40 that were doing it. In B2B, SAP does a very, very good job. McKinsey does a very good job. ExxonMobil does a very good job. Novo Nordisk does a good job. So if you look across these different industries, and here's why, and here's what's happening, and this is important for senior executives to know. We could easily split the companies that do well and don't do well along this dimension. That's one of the reasons why we call it the social maturity index. Companies that plan for what they're going to do in advance on social media are in one category, and the people who are just figuring out what we can post and doing anything and everything they can find just to get something out there, they're in another category. That category is bigger than the other category. And what we're finding is the best in class companies are moving to planning a quarter out. And the reason why they're doing the planning a quarter or more out is that allows you to get higher production. And that is really important in social media now. So being able to produce quality, in particular video, because everything is moving to video at a higher level, professional level, is where things are headed. It allows you to plan. So if you're going to do something, you want to do it right, then you can go into your organization with a calendar for the quarter, and you can say to the product organization, I need you to do this, and I give you 30 days to put it together, and then we're going to go out with it, right? Right now, in most organizations, social media is week to week. This came in, or we have this, we should make this announcement. And that is if you're one of those companies that are
it's very random and scattershot. Oh, look, we should post this. Oh, what about that? Right? It like you said, it's not well thought out, and they're just posting. So there's no story or through line, right? And when we plan for a whole quarter, we can say, this is the message we want to send out this quarter. Here's the through line. Here's the thread that you pull through all of your posts that stay on this topic and help our readers learn something, because we know as humans, we need a lot of repetition, one, and two, we know that not everybody will see every post. So we want to give them a chance to understand our story, right? And understand what they're learning and what those threads are.
Yeah. So that's the divide, is it's going towards higher production quality and further timing. So you can play that axis, and it's a good way to sit down and assess where you are, is what's the production quality and how far out are you planning. So as it relates to the individual platforms, LinkedIn is the 800-pound gorilla. It's a very noisy place right now. Everybody is there. And so production quality matters. So if you're playing in a very crowded space, which we all are, we're all on LinkedIn, then the way to differentiate is what the quality of the content and how it's produced going out. Okay. Instagram, interesting enough, is evolving in a number of different ways. stories on Instagram are being used for events. So having someone on the floor of the event and streaming that through the story, super helpful, super useful. Companies are starting to do that. I like that a lot. People want to be a part of an event while it's happening, but they can't necessarily attend, but they can follow you and follow that story as somebody's walking around on a trade show floor. So that's really good. Also on Instagram, the announcement of webinars, like people are now getting their information around webinars on Instagram. So we've also done this research generational too. So you look at the generations, millennial generations use Instagram a lot for B2B purposes. And if you're not there, and they are moving to TikTok. Twitter X is still a question mark for a lot of people. They've stayed off the platform. It's only really oriented towards consumer, or if you want to get an argument, it's a pretty good platform. But TikTok's also very similar to the stories part of Instagram, where you feel like you're a part of an experience, and that's really useful for certain situations. So that's what we're seeing on that side in terms of involvement. People are producing a lot of content now. That's the other thing. Amazon, AWS does daily webinars. And I think they may be up to 2 a day now. And they're doing them through LinkedIn, and they're producing it in LinkedIn. And then they're distributing that content through all the channels. So the production that they have behind them, the ability to create the content, get it produced, and then get it distributed is amazing. Really, really amazing.
Yeah, well, there's so many tools today too that make it so easy to produce content, edit content, and distribute content. So there's really no excuse. I mean, I do hear people say, saying, "Oh, I don't want to spend money on that," but I'm thinking, "Wow, well, what are you spending money on in marketing that isn't working? Let's move that budget over to something that's going to work for you."
Yeah, here's another fascinating thing we learned about LinkedIn and its behavior. And we just dealt with this problem because of scrolling. So let me back up from scrolling and the impact of what it does to your audiences. Before, we were really concerned about brand consistency, right? And corporate identity, everything looking the same visually, regardless of the channel, what we produce, right? We'd have the brand police.
Good branding tells us, right? It should all look the same, right?
That actually is a detriment on LinkedIn, because I'm scrolling so quickly through stories that if I see the same branding on a post, I will think I've already seen it. So where we used to have 8 seconds, if somebody landed on a website, I had 8 seconds to get your attention, keep and hold you. Now I have 1 or 2 seconds, and it's because of scrolling. So you have to think about that. You have to mix it out. So a couple tips for that is create series, create things that are connected, do like a top 10 list. Because the other thing that LinkedIn does is it doesn't put posts in order.
Right.
So people get lost on what day they're seeing, because it will stay on your wall for 4 days and it will rotate as they push it through. So if you can connect the dots for your audiences, especially in B2B, we have complex messages that we may need to deliver over a number of different postings. We can't do it in one. It's just too much. If you can help connect it for the audience. So if you can create a color theme, they don't look exact, but it's carrying the same 3 colors. It's just mixed up the way it is. If you can create a theme and they expect to see 3 parts in a series, those are things you need to do, because our attention spans are just gone. We go through so much information right now. It's incredible. And all these consumer platforms influence our B2B behaviors.
Yeah, they absolutely do. It's interesting. So let's talk to the CEO directly right now about what their company should be doing. So what kinds of best practices, right? They want to know, okay, so you're telling me it's important to be on these platforms. I'm actually starting to get it because you've proven it with some research, right? Now, what should we do? Like, there's just so much we could do. Like, for example, I see people posting more than once a day, sometimes 3 and 4 times a day. For me, that's too much. It's overload. Like, I don't want to see any more posts from them. And then others who maybe don't post often enough. That's one piece of it. So, and I know every platform's different in terms of how often should you post.
Yep.
And it probably is also dependent on your audience and how much they like to see. But then also, what is the content? You mentioned video really being a big player these days. So let's talk a little bit about what CEOs should expect their companies to be doing on social media in terms of frequency and content.
Okay. First thing to know is it is now strategic. It should be considered strategic and not tactical inside your organization. And there's 4 categories that you need to be thinking about in terms of what you're producing. And that helps also internally get your teams organized. There's a product bucket, right? So you need to be producing around products. There is a aspect that is related to your brand that you should be continuing to think this is a branding channel, and it is, and you need to be thinking about what you're producing in that category. There's a community outreach. There's a community aspect of this. There's culture. Culture fits in that as well. Diversity, inclusion, community outreach, all fits into that bucket. And then there is the HR component, because this is a valuable tool for recruiting and retaining your employees. Being in this, posting in it also involves your employees. They want to see you show up there as well. So
and we want them to see you and participate and tag and comment and all of that.
Yes. Yeah. So in this the product category is product and customer. Put those two together. So now you're down to 4 categories. Now you just need to figure out the frequency of this post in those 4 categories. And
okay, now hold there for a second.
Yeah.
Because, people really need specific instructions on this stuff. It's really very new to most people, and they really just don't know what to do. They would a lot of times do it if they knew.
Yes.
So give us an example in each category before we move on.
Yeah. Welcoming new customers to the family, making announcements of a new win. And that's a great one. Customers like to be recognized, and they want to feel like they're a part of something bigger. So that's always a great one to do. And that's that product, solution, customer bucket, right? The HR bucket, recruiting on-site areas, right? Recruiting fairs, recruiting at universities, show photos from there, say, hey, we showed up. Like, that's a big one as well.
And then announcing the new employees. I mean, people really feel good when you announce them. I see some great posts occasionally. I wish I saw more of them. New employees with their, their gear on, their logoed gear and their water bottle and all the fun stuff. And it's like, hey, we're welcoming you. And then we're sharing that so that others will see, oh, I would like to work there. They really welcome their new, employees.
Yeah. And then branding can be a whole bunch of different things. It can be your involvement in STEM programs. It can be a new logo that you've developed for a product. It can be your people, and be a photo from some event you're doing on site at your organization, right? People play very well also. Images of people, videos of people, very, very well on social media platforms. And so I would say the key thing to take away from this conversation is start thinking about planning. Are you day to day, week to week, or are you able to be strategic, think about what we're going to do for a quarter? And then
right. And for those companies who do a lot of events, like one of my clients, they know they have their whole year of events planned. So no reason to not think through that and be prepared for that for a whole quarter on social media.
It's exactly right. And the reason for that is very similar to events. There's a lot to be done to lead up and then at the event and then post event, right? It's the same thing with social media. When you start to plan it out, it starts to get integrated with the other things that you're doing. If you don't give enough lead time and plan, and you should sit down with the event people and say, okay, show us what you have in your calendar and we'll sync up with that. We'll use Instagram, stories to be on the floor, walking around, showing it, what we've got set up in terms of our booth or our giveaways or everything else. That's why it's so important to get ahead of it, because it allows you to sync up with other things that are going on inside of your organization. So it becomes strategic. If you're just tactical day to day, you'll miss so much. And this is a way to amplify all these other things. So it's expensive to go to an event, especially if you're going to sponsor something. Why wouldn't you want to get the most out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I cannot tell you the amazing people I have met at events because of my social posts. They actually come seek me out because they saw me
Yep.
posting using the hashtag and they want to know what I'm up to, what I'm all about. So I've seen it firsthand make a difference for me at an event
Yep.
if I'm posting live during that event and hashtagging so people can find me. And I think that's a lot of work, right? To do that, it's double timing because not only am I working the event and doing the work I need to do there, but in between, I'm snapping some photos, some selfies with people in my
Yeah.
booth and posting and tagging them. It is extra work, but if it becomes part of what you do and everybody's planning on doing it, it becomes so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other big thing I would say is if you decide that you're an organization that wants to get your senior management team involved in social media, sit down, figure out the training, figure out their role, how they want to, and it's two ways, right? We would like you to do something, but you're only comfortable with certain things. And
Yeah.
that's that conversation and negotiation goes on. Is like, I'll like post, but I'm not sure I really want to comment. That's fine, right? It gets things started and we can go from there. But those kind of conversations need to be had as well. Is there is value in doing it, to know that. It's a matter of what role you want people to play and knowing how to do it correctly. I think Elon Musk scares a lot of CEOs because of his behaviors. He scared
Well,
SpaceX
I do
people
think that,
and
yeah,
Tesla.
there are some people out there just kind of going rogue, but I firmly believe that everyone in the company should have social media training.
Yes.
It's customer facing work. And some people in your company are not used to that at all. But also, everyone has a network of people. Everyone knows other
Yeah.
people. And if they use their social media to connect to those people that they actually know, and then they open that network to their company by being on social media, it provides leads for salespeople.
Yeah.
That's a direct correlation, right? So when I'm a salesperson and I've got a list that I'm, trying to, of people I'm trying to get an appointment with, I can go on social media and see who in my company might be connected to
Yeah.
them to get an introduction. And I cannot tell you the number of times it's ridiculous that this happens where a salesperson is trying to break into a company and someone in their company already knows that person, but they, didn't say anything or didn't do any, or the salesperson didn't even ask, hey, before I, cold call this company, does anybody here know anyone?
Yeah.
Or they didn't even use their LinkedIn navigator to look to see who their connections were, right? That is such a waste of everyone's time, and it's just such a waste of resources. So by having the whole company be trained on what is your
Yeah.
role in the social media world, what is your online presence? Now, some people just refuse and they don't want to have an online presence at all. There's nothing we can do about them, but most people in your company will be happy to be online, especially on LinkedIn, maybe not on some of the other platforms, but be on LinkedIn and be a professional and build their network, spend a few minutes every week doing that. But we've got to tell them what to do, because I literally have people saying to me, I actually don't know, like, should I click like or not? Like, what happens when I click like? Will they then come and try to sell something to me? Or what should I say? I don't know what to say on a post. And a lot of times, some of the posts don't really give you much to say. Too bad for the people who are posting them. But many posts do cause conversation. What can I say safely, right? What should I say? What should I not say? What can I post? Do I have to develop the content? Does my company develop the content? Am I a creator or a curator, right? And I tell most people, you're a curator.
Yeah.
You don't have to create anything. There's so much great content from your own company and from other resources around the internet. So I think we have to train them so they know this is what your profile should look like.
Yep.
This is what you should post. This is what you should click like on. This is what you can comment. Give them some guidelines around it so they feel comfortable.
Yeah, it's true. And it is part of the brand too, right? The social media
Right.
is part of your brand. It's the way you're communicating through a channel. It's the way audiences are communicating with you as well. And that involves also then making sure your LinkedIn page, your corporate LinkedIn page, is at equal quality to your website, right? So you can't ignore that page and just, so it may be that's where you participate. You're more on their corporate page then versus your own profile.
Well, and for many reasons, right? Because let's say you are posting things on the corporate page, that is a place where others in your company can find things to repost, right? Or comment on. So that's important. And for CEOs, if they don't want to make a lot of posts or whatever, at least they can come to the company page and make a comment. But let's switch gears a little bit here now, and let's talk directly to the CEO. If a CEO is all bought in, they're all in and they're like, yes, I will spend time doing this. Once you've trained me, I will spend time doing this. What are the key things that a CEO should do on social media to really, really speak well to their own brand and their company brand?
So they don't post often. That's one of the first things, is that this isn't something that's going to occur weekly often, right? It'll be on the important things. So it may be that there's only this, whatever C-level person that we're talking about could show up only like once a month, but it's important when they show up. And that's what they need to know is, when do we want these people to show up and how? The other thing is, as a senior executive, in particular CEOs, getting your own employees involved is a big thing. You set the agenda, right? You set the direction. They'll follow your lead.
Well, you're the model, right? You're saying, hey, look, it's important to us. I'm going to do it. You need to do it too, but we all do it in a different way. C-level people do this, salespeople do this, others in the organization do this. Maybe customer success and sales and marketing are much more involved and more having a higher frequency, whereas the others are just simply sharing the post from the company page and making comments.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example. And it may also be what the CEO's personal passion is. So we work for an organization, SaaS company, founded by a woman, and she's very involved in STEM in a couple of universities. Anything that's related to women in technology or STEM programs, she gets out in front of. And that's her space, and that's what she's going to be known for. So you're going to see her show up there, but she's not going to go into other directions, and that's fine. That is her passion, and she has something to say about that, and we want to amplify that. So and she's an amazing story, which is another conversation about how she got to where she was. But that could be your thing too. As a passionate CEO, you care about something. What is it, and how does it connect to your organization and to your brand? Is it people? Is it community? That's a very good one as well. And a lot of CEOs and organizations are very involved in their communities or various different supporting outreach to various different groups inside the organization. So and if you look at anybody's website, you will see where they're involved in certain support of charities or groups that they care about or support. So why not show up there?
Right. Well, if we want people to be interested, we have to be interesting, right? And so we have to show them who we are and what we stand for. And social media is a great place to do that. Now, I'm not saying to get religious or political or do anything that is awkward or uncomfortable, but within the realm of things that your company does where they shine, absolutely, right? So big community project, absolutely. Something special you did with your own employees, some sort of team building, absolutely. Something that a customer had huge success with, great thing to post, right? So these are all happy, good news things. And, in the old days before the internet, we would do a press release and let out the good news of things that our company was doing. Now we can do that anytime without any help from anyone because of social media. So there's so many good things going on in every company, but we just need to start sharing those more.
Yeah. Two other things I will say that's important for CEOs. Understand what your competitors are doing in the space, because someone is setting expectations And if it's not you, it's someone else, and you're going to have to follow, behind that. Two, make sure that these old legacy platforms that you may have experimented with are dead, or somebody's paying attention, like Facebook. So we did some work for a client and found out that their old Facebook page, there were hackers that were using that Facebook page. Yeah. And they had been using it for about a year. So if you have these legacy social media platforms that you've moved off of, but you still have a presence, make sure you know what's going on there.
Yeah, well, take them down. If you're not using them at all, just simply take them down. If you're not using Twitter anymore, delete your account. If you're not using Facebook anymore, delete your account. You can always put it back later if you decide that's part of your strategy, but just to have them sitting there, they are ripe for hackers. And it's just a bad impression. If I go to your Facebook page and you haven't posted for 7 years, like, I wonder if you're still in business. So we have to be really careful with these old legacy pages. Just either take them down or keep something going at least once a week so people know, and make sure hackers haven't taken advantage of it.
Yeah, it's a dangerous world right now, and has been for a period of time. So you don't want to let your guard down.
Absolutely. All right. So CEOs, if you're not convinced yet, give me or Scott a call. Again, as Scott said, be strategic about it. Don't be so random. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with you having a thought that you want to share, some thought leadership because you read something or you talked to somebody and you want to pop that in to your social media. Please do. But don't be random all the time. Like, have a course of action, have a strategy, follow that strategy. And then if you get an idea in between, yes, great. Absolutely. Go post it. Right. But make sure not only is everyone in your company trained, right? Sellers and customer success, marketing, of course, but everyone in your company, but especially your senior executives, are trained so that they can feel completely comfortable. They know what they're supposed to do. They know how they're supposed to do it, and they know how often they're supposed to do it. Give them what they need to be successful building their own personal brand and your company brand online.
Nicely said. I would add to it. Yes.
Well, Scott, thank you so much for coming on the show
Absolutely.
today. It's always fun to talk with you. Let everyone know how they can find you. Do you like people to connect on LinkedIn? Where can they find your website or other things about you?
Yes, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can follow our carbon design page. And then you can visit our website. We put a lot of content out. So there's a lot of information for you there as well. But take this seriously. This is a strategic decision inside organizations now. It's not an experiment anymore. It's an important channel.
It is an important channel. Absolutely. And if you do decide to connect with Scott on LinkedIn, please let him know that you heard him here on Sales Talk for CEOs, so he has some context for deciding whether to accept your connection request or not.
Right. Thank you, Alice. I appreciate the time today. It was great talking with you. And I wish, like you said, we live closer so we could get together in person.
I know, it'd be awesome, right? And just even to have these conversations more frequently. But thank you so much for taking your time to come on the show today. Absolutely. If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.